Imagine finally finding the treasure you've spent years chasing, only to lose the person who mattered most. That's exactly where Outer Banks Season 5 begins. The Pogues have survived shipwrecks, betrayals, gunfights, hurricanes, kidnappings, and treasure hunters who would kill for a fortune. But this time, they've lost JJ. And this isn't just another setback. This is personal. After everything the group has survived together, JJ's death leaves John B., Sarah, Kiara, Pope, and Cleo facing something they have never really had to deal with before, a world without one of their own. And there's one man responsible, Chandler Groff, JJ's biological father, the same man who betrayed him, the same man who ultimately killed him in Morocco. And now Groff is gone, but the Pogues aren't willing to let him disappear, because this time they're not chasing treasure first, they're chasing revenge. And that changes the entire meaning of their final adventure. Welcome back to the Outer Banks. Season 5 is the final chapter of the story that began with 4 friends looking for answers about John B.'s missing father. What started as a treasure hunt became a story about friendship, loyalty, betrayal, and family. And now everything comes down to one final question. Can the Pogues survive long enough to finally escape the life they've been trapped in? Because after Morocco, they're at their lowest point. JJ is gone. The Blue Crown is gone. Their enemies are still hunting them. And home isn't even safe anymore. The kooks want them gone. Chandler Groff is still out there. Dahlia and the Corsairs are closing in. And somehow, Rafe is now part of the equation. Yes, Rafe Cameron. The man who spent years making the Pogues' lives miserable. The man who fought John B. The man whose relationship with Sarah has been filled with violence, jealousy, and betrayal. But Season 5 forces the characters into an alliance nobody would have expected. Because when the entire world turns against you, sometimes your enemy becomes the only person you can trust. And that's where this final adventure becomes especially dangerous. The Pogues aren't simply trying to find another treasure. They're trying to reclaim their future. But there's still one mystery hanging over everything: the Blue Crown, the legendary object introduced during Season 4. The Pogues believed finding it could change their lives. But after JJ's death, the crown takes on an entirely different meaning. Kiara becomes consumed by the possibility that the legend could somehow bring JJ back. And this is where the story becomes emotionally dangerous, because grief can make people believe impossible things. Kiara isn't ready to accept that JJ is really gone. And if the legend gives her even the smallest reason to believe there's another possibility, she may follow it, no matter how dangerous it becomes. Meanwhile, the rest of the Pogues are dealing with their own pain. John B. and Sarah are trying to hold themselves together. Pope is carrying his own anger. Cleo is fighting to stay focused. And Kiara is struggling between accepting reality and refusing to let JJ become a memory. But what happens next changes everything, because the search for Groff leads the Pogues far beyond the Outer Banks, and their revenge mission becomes another international treasure hunt. Only this time, there may be no happy ending waiting at the finish line. The Pogues have always been good at one thing: finding trouble. And this time, trouble is waiting for them in Portugal. Groff has disappeared after the events in Morocco. He knows the Pogues will come for him, and he also knows exactly what they want: the Blue Crown. So Groff has something the Pogues desperately need: information. But giving information to the enemy is never simple, because Groff isn't just running. He's playing a game, and the longer he stays ahead of them, the more dangerous the game becomes. The Pogues track him down as their revenge mission takes them across Europe, but they aren't the only ones searching. Dahlia and the Corsairs are also involved, and these aren't ordinary treasure hunters. They're dangerous people with their own reasons for wanting the crown. That means the Pogues are caught between multiple enemies: Groff on one side, the Corsairs on another, the kooks waiting for them back home, and the police still treating them like criminals. There's nowhere safe to run. But the biggest problem isn't their enemies. It's the Pogues themselves. Because JJ's death has changed the group. For years, JJ was the wild card, the one who could turn a terrible plan into an even worse plan, but somehow make it work. He was reckless, he was funny, he was damaged, and underneath all of that, he loved his friends. Now his absence creates a hole nobody can fill, especially Kiara, and that's why the Blue Crown becomes so important. The legend says the crown can bring back the dead. Now, whether that legend is real is another question entirely, but when you're grieving, you don't always need proof. You just need hope, and Kiara grabs onto that hope. The others know how dangerous this is, but they also understand why she can't let go, because if there is even a tiny chance that JJ could somehow return, how could they ask her to stop? This creates one of the biggest emotional conflicts of the final season. The Pogues have spent their entire lives chasing legends: the Royal Merchant, El Dorado, the Blue Crown. But now they're chasing something much more personal.
They're chasing the possibility of reversing death itself, and that could be the most dangerous treasure hunt they've ever attempted. Meanwhile, John B. and Sarah have another secret. They're expecting a baby, and suddenly the stakes become much bigger. John B. has spent years running from his father's legacy. Sarah has spent years trying to escape the Cameron family's chaos. Now they are preparing to become parents, which means their greatest adventure may no longer be about finding treasure. It may be about building a life. A normal life, something the Pogues have never really had. But before they can have that life, they have unfinished business. And Groff knows it. This is where the final season's central conflict becomes clear. The Pogues want freedom, Groff wants control, the Corsairs want the crown, and Kiara wants JJ back. Everybody wants something different. And when all those goals collide, someone is going to lose. Then comes the wild card, Rafe. For most of the series, Rafe has been one of the Pogues' biggest enemies, but Season 5 places him in an unexpected position, an uneasy alliance. And that phrase matters, because an alliance isn't friendship. It means two people can work together, while still waiting for the other person to betray them. So the question becomes, can Rafe actually help them, or is he simply waiting for the right moment to take everything for himself? No one expected the Pogues and Rafe to be on the same side, and that's exactly why it could work. Because Rafe understands the kooks, he understands the Camerons, he understands the world the Pogues have spent years fighting against. But Rafe is also unpredictable, and in a season where trust is already fragile, one wrong move could destroy everything. And just when the Pogues think they understand the mission, the real danger begins.
The past, or what comes next. And as the final confrontation approaches, the people who started this journey as teenagers are no longer the same people. They've lost friends, they've lost family, they've survived things most adults couldn't survive. And now they have one final chance to decide what kind of life comes after the adventure. But before that happens, they still have to survive the final enemy, Chandler Groff. And this is where we reach the emotional heart of Outer Banks Season 5. The story was never really about treasure. Not completely. It was about a group of young people who didn't have much, except each other. John B. started this journey searching for his father. Sarah was trying to escape her family. Pope was searching for recognition and justice. Kiara was fighting against a world that never quite accepted where she belonged. Cleo was trying to survive. And JJ was simply trying to find a family that wouldn't abandon him. And eventually, he found one. The Pogues. That's why his death hurt so much, because JJ wasn't just another character. He was part of the identity of the group. So the final season isn't simply asking whether Groff gets defeated. It's asking whether the Pogues can continue without JJ, and whether they can turn his death into something meaningful. Groff represents the worst version of family. He was supposed to be JJ's father. Instead, he became his killer. The Pogues represent the opposite. They weren't connected by blood. They were connected by choice. And that may be the most important message of the entire series. Family isn't always the people you're born with. Sometimes, family is the people who stay, the people who come back, the people who stand beside you when everything goes wrong. And that's why the final battle with Groff matters. It's not just good versus evil. It's chosen family versus blood family. It's the Pogues refusing to let Groff define JJ's story. And it's about taking back control of their own lives. The Blue Crown may be legendary, but even if it is worth a fortune, it cannot replace JJ. And even if the legend promises impossible things, the Pogues eventually have to confront reality. JJ is gone, but what he gave them isn't. His friendship remains, his memories remain, his influence remains, and the Pogues can carry that with them. That's what makes the final chapter so emotional. Because for once, the goal isn't necessarily to find another door. It isn't another map. It isn't another treasure. It's finding a way home, a real home. And after everything they've been through, that may be the hardest treasure to find. John B. and Sarah now have another reason to fight. Their future, their child, a chance to build something completely different from the families they came from. Pope and Cleo have their own futures to consider. Kiara has to decide whether she will allow grief to control the rest of her life. And Rafe has one final opportunity to decide what kind of person he wants to become. That's what makes the ending of this story bigger than a treasure hunt. Every character has a choice. Repeat the past or break the cycle. And that is the real meaning behind the final adventure. For 4 seasons, the Pogues kept asking, what's the next treasure? But the final season asks a different question.
What's left when the treasure hunt is over? And maybe that's exactly how Outer Banks was always supposed to end. Not with another map, not with another villain, not with another impossible treasure, but with the Pogues finally understanding what they were searching for all along: freedom, family, and a place to belong. So when the final chapter arrives, remember where this story began. A group of friends, a missing father, a mysterious clue, and a dream that seemed impossible. They chased bold, they chased legends, they crossed oceans, they escaped death more times than anyone should, and they lost people along the way. But through everything, they remained Pogues. And that's why the final words of this story may be the simplest ones. You can take away the treasure, you can take away the money, you can take away the adventure, but you can't take away the bond between people who chose each other. That was the real treasure. And after 5 seasons, the Pogues are finally coming home. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications, because the final season of Outer Banks is packed with mysteries, betrayals, and answers we've been waiting years to see. And tell me in the comments, do you think the Blue Crown can really bring JJ back? Or is Kiara chasing a legend because she's simply not ready to let him go? Either way, one final adventure awaits. P4L. Pogues for life.